Cool. So again, first of all, Tshepo, thank you for joining me. I think just to give you some context into what my thinking has been with these series of videos where I sit down with various people. So for the better part, I think of close to about 2 years, I've been doing these videos about my own career and posting on some of it in typing about what my thoughts are, what I'm currently going through in terms of my career, what some of the things I see actually going on, perhaps in the job market in SA. And so I think it was towards the end of last year where I started to think about this. I'm like, okay, but I don't know everything, you know, and my take on certain things isn't the only take, you know. So I decided, okay, let me actually sit down with people at different spectrums in their career, but let me sit down with them and find out what their thoughts are about certain topics, but mostly with the intent of actually trying to reverse engineer some of the successes they've actually had in their career. So a lot of this conversation is going to be about, okay, if we had to reverse engineer the success that Tshepo has had right now, what would need to happen? Like if you had to start from scratch, what would need to happen? And I mean, obviously, I mean, you look at now where you are now, you think about it and you're like, okay, I shouldn't have made that mistake. I actually could have arrived here a lot sooner if I did this and this and this and this, but I didn't do that. You understand? So that's basically my thinking about this series of videos. It's like, okay, let's reverse engineer some of your successes. And more often than not, I just start at the point of where a person was in terms of high school. So it's basically like, okay, if I was fresh out of high school, I look up to someone like you. What would that look like if I were to try to actually map out a similar path to the one that you've created? So with that, we're gonna actually start here with, if I'm with Tshepo in high school, who is Tshepo?
That's a very difficult question, man, because Tshepo at that time didn't even know who Tshepo was. But let me take a stab at it. So like my high school, went to high school in Northern Cape, from Prestad. High school called Komoto High School. So that's where I went. And I think a lot of people did say that I was too nerdy. I think, you know, there's some truth to that. So I liked reading. That was my thing. I loved science, man. So it was reading and science and watching TV. And TV, it was a lot of like educational programs. So when I was going through Matric, I think there was a lot of this project. I mean, the program, I forgot the name of that program. Matrix Uploaded or something like that. Right. That was my entertainment, by the way. I watched that show the moment I got back from school, and then later in the evening I would go on Mixit, and on Mixit there was I know I'm bringing back.
You're exposing your age.
So on Mixit there was a yeah, it is what it is. So on Mixit there was this again. A group, I don't know if it was a group, but it was like a quiz type of thing. Like you can download for physics, you can download for life science, and then they would quiz you, they would give you graphs and stuff like that. So even when I was like in bed sleeping, bro, that's what I was doing while I was chatting with my friends and mixing. So that was the kind of guy that I was. I was like really into activities. I was in science society. So that's where we basically like, you know, brought in like the guys that are coming in from middle school and they're doing grade 10 and they're wondering like, okay, cool, what's science about? What does science mean for Komoto High School? And then we'll give them that introduction, we'll take them, show them around the labs and stuff like that. I was also in English society. So with English society was that I really liked photography. So it was that element, and all basically in high school, was not that interesting, man.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's interesting. I'm gonna poke some holes into it because I think there are a few things in the books.
Yeah.
Which books were you reading then?
Right. I had this huge physics textbook. I forgot the name of this book. It was called something atomic, but it was leaning a lot towards the chemistry side of physics. So that was my book. That was my Bible. It had actually everything that I needed. I had another maths book that I got from a teacher from a previous school, like from my middle school. The maths teacher there, she really liked doing her job, and then she would like buy books, and then she would have just like competitions in class that whoever scores the highest, I'm gonna buy you like a scientific calculator, and then I scored the highest, and then she bought me a scientific calculator, she bought me a book. So I had two books. There was that physics books and the maths book. And they helped me out as well with like assignments that I had. So I would just reference that because at that time, bro, you have to understand this is the time where internet and access to information was not for everybody. It was very difficult to get access to information. I think encyclopedias. So at home we did have, I think, about 3 of them. I think it was the letter G collection, but we had a few. So those were my pastimes.
Okay. But where does that come from? Like, when I think about my life, it was, I wasn't all that interested in reading. Like, I think I actually got properly into reading when I was perhaps maybe 15, 16 years old. But I met this guy who, Lucky Malabi, and I think to this day, he's probably still the smartest man I've ever met. Like, he was impossibly smart, you know, and he was actually one of the, and I always tell the story because it's so true. He actually shaped a lot of my thinking, especially in those early years. So I want to understand that from your context. Like, where does that come from? Is this parental upbringing? What was actually influencing the fact that you could be so interested in school? You could be reading encyclopedias. And I mean, at an age where people your age are not reading encyclopedias, they're doing other things. So where does that actually come from?
I think for me, it was, I was an odd, curious kid.
Oh, okay.
And then you get that mix. But for me, it was just like, I liked knowing how things operated, right? I was very interested in like systems. At an early age, I didn't know that I was interested in systems. I learned this later in life. But I was really curious about how systems work. I was curious about how the components come together in, like, say, for example, a radio. I actually opened my grandmother's radio to just look how it works. And then I put it back together, and then there were a few pieces left after I closed it, and it never worked again. But anyways, I was that kind of kid. And so when it came to natural systems again, I think that my interest was piqued there.
Okay, no, that
So I was always I had like this weird, like, I think my friends back then like, I would know these little facts that are counterintuitive. I really like that, and it was always interesting to find out information about like why sharks were two colored. I just dove into that. Again, I was reading this book, and then they said that a gray color on the top and then a white color on the bottom. That when you look at the shark from the top, it blends with the water and the light. I just found that kind of weird things are very fascinating.
No, that makes sense. Okay.
I like the fact that you took a moment to process that one.
I had to, like, I'm very interested. Like, I really am interested in trying to understand, especially those early days, as to what could have actually happened, you know, because it's the only way in which I've learned to actually be able to learn from someone, like understand how they actually got to where they are, understand those early days, the fact that they didn't wake up here, like they didn't wake up where they are today. So if you understand those initial moments where it didn't look like they were going to be what they are right now. And yet they were still interested enough in trying to understand how a radio works, pulling it apart. All of a sudden it's broken. Like, okay, so why is it broken? I don't think I broke anything, but it's no longer working. Why is the sharp the way that it is? So I'm very intrigued by that, especially with human beings. So okay, let's take the next step. So you finish your matric, and then what do you do next?
All right, so I really wanted to study engineering. So during my matric, I applied to tax for engineering. And then that was my first choice. The second choice was, I think it was BSc chemistry. And they accepted me for chemistry, but not for engineering because I had like a lower grade in mathematics. Yeah, I mean, the story of physics and maths from my high school, it's a long one, but basically we were responsible for teaching ourselves. And then this is during the year when teachers were protesting. It was a whole mess, man. So I had like a very low mark in not a very low mark, I had a level 4, and they wanted a 5 or 6. I remember that, right? So what I did was I applied for a program that Kumba had at the time, that they were going to take you to a college in Joburg, and this college was EduMap, right? So what this is, it's like a bridging program. So you're going to be doing your maths and your physics and your life sciences if you want to do that. And then in addition to that, you'll be doing like computer sciences, you'll be doing accounting, you'll be doing business studies and engineering drawing and all kinds of things. So after matric, I went to that program then just to try and improve my math mark.
Okay. And then after that?
Yeah, and then at the college, they brought in business side of things, and college with a 7 in physics, a 6 in math, and also I think a 5 in paper 3, because we didn't do paper 3 in our high school. Like that's your statistics and probability.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think eventually in my life, that's what I ended up doing anyways, the paper 3 stuff that I didn't do at high school. So yeah, and then I got into tax for, I was that stubborn. Yeah.
That's interesting. And then you got into tax for engineering. So you end up finishing the engineering.
Yeah.
Okay. So you end up finishing the engineering, and then what happens?
Right. So so now after engineering, so this is where, like, during the course, like learning different things in metallurgical engineering. So there was a big element of data analytics in it. And I found myself more attracted to that than the actual metallurgy stuff, right? So in 2017, actually 2018, and then there was another program. So this one is in Cape Town. Okay. So this new institution that was going to be started out. It's going to be training people to become data scientists, and they're looking for 100 people, called Explore Data Science Academy.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
They had this long, I think 5-hour exam that you had to take to figure out whether you're the right fit for that. And then I think I took that in 2017 towards the end of the year. And then, yeah, I got called back January the following year. And then I went to do that.
So you did, so you were in the initial cohort in Explore Data Science?
Yes, we were the first original explorers, the first 100.
The guinea pigs.
With the 99 pass rate. Yeah.
That's amazing. And then, so how was that program? Like, I think a lot of people tend to reach out to me and they're like, I'm considering moving into data analytics, data science, and some of them are still students, others aren't, and whatever else. How do you think that program and that year of actually doing that program has helped you?
Right. I think comparing Explore, because I also get this like quite a lot, right? Somebody would compare like your 4A or your 3A degree to Explore. and then say actually there was one lady who was commenting this on an interview video that I did with one of the Explore graduates, right? She was saying that how is it fair that somebody who went to, essentially a boot camp, she was referring to Explore as essentially a boot camp, can get a job over a person who went and studied, advanced algorithms and all that stuff. So here's the advantage for Explore, right? They actually teach you practical work.
Okay.
So when you go to university and then you do, say, for example, you do maybe your BSc in maths or stats or whatever, right? The moment you start a job, right, you don't know Power BI. They don't do Power BI. I'm taking, yes. I'm doing, I told you that I'm at an office. So normally what happens is that sorry about that, man. If you don't work, that happens. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's motion sensitive light. But basically what I was saying is that currently I'm also taking a course at UNISA. That's a BSc Applied Mathematics, right? They don't teach you Power BI. And as a data analyst, you need to know Power BI, right? They don't teach you Python, they use R, right? And R for statistical analysis is the best. But when it comes to creating all these fancy web dev tools, like you need Python. They don't teach you that stuff. So when you go to a job, first you have to learn that stuff. And I think that's why Explore alumni are more attractive to employers, because they don't have to teach you the role. They'll teach you this is the business rules, but your dashboard development skills, you're good. Your SQL development, you're good. Your Python, you're good. Your Tableau, you're good. And I remember they also, they went heavy on AWS. So we did AWS as well. So even cloud computing. So I left the program with that knowledge. So I'd say, if you want to learn how to do the job.
That's interesting.
If you want to learn how does a decision.
Sure. That's because for me, more often than not, whenever I get, because I never went through like a boot camp of that nature and whatever else. I agree 100. Like, I think and I talk to people a lot when it comes to, I think my previous guest is a person actually studying education. And I'm like, because the general argument with people is like the education system doesn't prepare people for the workplace. And so it's failing people in terms of preparing them for the actual work that they have to do in their workplace. And I always say to them, you see, the idea of failing, we need to define that, because when we say that something is failing, we're saying it's not meeting the needs for which it was designed. You see, so when you think about that within the context of university programs, especially undergraduate programs, they aren't actually designed for work readiness per se. They are, you are actually in a PhD program. So its job is to prepare you for your honors, and its job is to prepare you for your masters. And your masters, that's why most people, when you speak to them, they'll say to you, whether they studied actuarial science or whether they studied whatever else, they say, I only understood what I was actually studying towards the end of my honors. Like I was 4 years in, and only then it started making sense, because the way in which it's actually designed, it's designed to actually produce researchers, not so much people that are actually going to join the workforce. And
I was actually about to say that it is designed to make you an academic.
Yes.
But if you want to apply that stuff that you learn, you're going to have to go into a work environment and then learn how to do the work.
Yeah. And I think that's where things like boot camps come into the pictures. Like, I think they are education reimagined. They've actually said, listen, you actually do not need to understand or be able to prove a Laplace transform. No, you just need to know how it works. You don't need to understand all of the proofs that go into this, because you're not going to be an academic. What you need to understand is what this is and be able to apply it into, let's say, a business problem and whatever. And I think that's where the value of boot camps actually come in. Now, with this, I mean, you've spent 4 years of your life studying towards basically 5, because you go and you actually improve your marks because you actually want to become an engineer. At what point during this program do you actually say, okay, I'm not sure I want to actually be an engineer anymore? Because I mean, you've already made so many sacrifices towards that. So how do you actually, at what point do you make that decision? When does it actually click to you and say, okay, I don't think I actually want to be an engineer per se. I think this is more interesting to me.
Yeah, so I think at that time, the engineering program itself, man, it was tough. I don't want to lie. So Tugs, man,
Yeah.
they've decided that they'll do this thing called engineering week.
Yes.
So with engineering week is that you get to write all of your semester tests in 1 week.
Yes.
Meaning Monday you're writing, Tuesday you're writing, all the way. Actually, you start writing on Saturday, right? You start writing on Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, all the way to Friday. And always that period, it was a dark period, man. I don't want to lie. It was super tough. So I remember like my first engineering week, I passed my calculus, because you write your calculus on a Saturday. Then Monday it was maybe chemistry, or I don't remember what it was. So I would pass the one that I wrote on Saturday. I would pass the one that I wrote on Tuesday. I mean Monday and Tuesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I wouldn't get good marks with those ones.
Yeah.
Right. So second semester test in the first in that same period. Now I would focus on the ones that I failed. Yeah. The first semester test, the second semester test, I failed the ones that I passed. Like it was never enough. Like I tried to cover all the bases, and I think again, every day you had something to submit. Like every day something was due. Yeah. You spend most of your time bunking classes, prepping for labs, doing assignments, web assignments, and all those things. So it was a pretty intense period. And like, because you internalize that stuff, right? You think maybe this is what it means to be an engineer. Yeah. So even after I leave university, that's what I'll have to keep putting. I have to keep producing like test after test at that level. And I remember also at that time, the iron ore price was dropping, bro. So basically when the iron ore price drops, the mines don't want metallurgists anymore. So it was that also playing into effect. And I think I remember the defining moment for me was when I was doing, this was like a project that we had to do. It was a metallurgy project, by the way. And basically we had to take an aluminum plate that has been welded, and then you have to cut it so that you can go and test the strength along the welding area to see from the weld and areas moving away from the weld, what is the strength of this aluminum alloy. And then I had a little bit of an accident in the lab that almost like cut my fingers off, right? I think for me, that moment was the one where I was like, okay, I need to step back and just reassess a bit. Do you know what I mean? And you always saw in the news, Goldfield's mine, it was always in the news that, you know, the mine has, the bedrock has shifted and people are trapped. And so the mining industry at that point in my life, it was not a good place to work at. And then those things were happening. So then I started to like, hey, I already like the data analysis part that I'm doing in the course, because we do generate a lot of data when we're running our tests, and then we analyze the data. I enjoyed that part. Like I could spend hours and not realize it, that I've been here for like 4 hours just working on the analysis, trying something different. Like, okay, let me change this and see how it affects all of that stuff. So I really enjoyed doing that stuff. So for me to move from that to this, I think it was very natural.
Okay. Because
yeah.
I think I've had like 2 other guests as well, and they all talk about a change in career path. Like one of the guys is actually a good friend of mine, Pila. He talks about how he was studying accounting sciences. You know, now he's an account manager at Altram and whatever else. He's like, you know, dude, like, you know, it's completely different. So one of the things that I've been working at understanding is that idea where you're working on something for a long time, but you simply realize that it's just not for you. But you realize that this was actually not time wasted, because there is this other part of what I've been doing that could perhaps be a career change for me. Because some of the people that tend to reach out to me there are people that feel stuck in their careers, and they're like, I'm not sure what to do. I haven't been promoted or whatever else. Or they're not sure what the next step is in their careers. Like, I'm thinking about going back to school, but I'm not sure if this is the right course. And every time I'd say to them, listen, you've got nothing to lose. Like, they feel like if I do this and then I realize at the end of this degree program that I don't like this, then I've wasted my time. But you're a practical example of the fact that, no, listen, if you actually put your all into this, even if that thing is not the thing that you end up doing, it could potentially lead you into the thing that you'll actually end up enjoying. Is that something that you've actually reflected on, like in hindsight, and say, I actually have not wasted my time, because even though I took this bridging course, I ended up doing this thing. I almost lose a finger, but in the
3 fingers.
But it's like, in the midst of all of that, and you've got engineering week, you've got this, and it really just feels like hell. It's like somehow you're able to find that thing. Have you actually thought about that in hindsight, like from where you are now, and say, this has actually been an interesting.
Do you know how weird it is? That question. It's because so when I was doing my program at Tux, we had a lot of modules from like other departments and other different kinds of engineering fields. So for example, we had Python programming, and I hated Python programming.
Yeah.
I hated it. I didn't go there to be a programmer. I went there to be an engineer.
Yeah.
And then I did calculus first year, you do calculus second year. Like, I did so much calculus. Like, and like I said, that every day you had something to submit. It was always a calculus related assignment that you had to submit. So I was pretty annoyed by that I didn't come here for this, but I spent so much of my time doing this. And then later in life, even when I went to explore, when we were doing the stats model function, and you're basically your neural nets. When we're talking about the matrix manipulations, like, I had already done this stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it clicked faster than the person who it was new to. They didn't need to do that actually, but I'm just saying, like, for me, I kind of like saw the story from behind and like, okay, now that makes sense, right? Even with the calculus, I think even first year when I was doing my UNISA course, because you have to do all of that stuff all over again.
Yeah.
So I passed with like 90.
Yeah.
So it's not effort wasted. I think it cemented. It also like taught me how to look for information. I think that I know how to do research. Like, I know where to get, scientific papers. I know trusted sources. I know how to gather that information that I need to make whatever it is that I'm working on robust. And even because UNISA is distance learning, so it helps for you to have that skill to be able to like get this information. Like, they throw R in your face. You need to find like a credible R tutorial on YouTube. So I know how to do all of those things. I think that's what I took away as well. And it helps to know calculus, because I breezed through first year.
Yeah. No, that's,
yeah.
I mean, there's this, and I like the way in which you explain it, because there's this idea by this lady, Marie Folio, where she talks about clarity comes from engagement, not thought. Yeah. So it's like things become clearer as you engage with the thing, not actually as you think about it. So as you make that transition from, let's say, okay, I think I like this data analysis thing. Let's see where this might go. So you make the decision to now basically complete that, move into explore. What's your thought process in that moment? Like, have you already decided I'm going into data analytics, or is it still a thing of, okay, let's see, this might be interesting. If it's not, it's just a year of our lives, we can do something else. Like, what's the thought process at this moment? Because, I mean, obviously now you're having to separate you know, it's almost like a breakup pretty much. You know, if you've been with someone for a long time and then you guys break up, now you have to figure out who you are separate from that person now again. You know, I mean, for the longest time, you were this Tshepo who's going to become an engineer. Now you're no longer Tshepo who's going to become an engineer. Now you are Tshepo who's perhaps, you know, dating data, you know, trying to see where this might go.
Yeah.
You know, what's your thought process in that moment? Like, what exactly are you thinking? Are you thinking, have I made the right decision? Where are you at that moment?
So leading up to me taking the exam, like I said, Explore had just came out. So they basically had no history, right? There's a website, there's, you know, you can read up a few things. You can decide to go for the program or you can decide to stay. At the end of the day, you're still taking a risk, right? Whether it's a opportunity cost or you're gonna go to a fly by night. So that's where I was at. I was very conflicted. And you're right, man. It was a breakup. Basically trying to find you know, my new identity, right? Like, who am I going to be moving forward from this point on? It wasn't an easy decision, I have to tell you. And also, by the way, Explore did respond after I took the exam and everything. Then they were like, everything is proper, but unfortunately we can't give you a spot. We'll have to blacklist you blacklist you. We have to waitlist you if you're interested.
Okay.
And I was like, no, it's fine. You can put me in the wait list. So yeah, that also like gave me a moment to pause and then just readjust. Okay, cool. Now this Explore thing might not happen. And you know, I'm not really sure about going to work in the mining industry anymore. And yeah, so I was in that situation. And then I thought to myself, like, you know what? I've always been interested in mathematics, right? I can just do that. Now I have the time. I've learned all the things that I need to learn. Like in your introduction, I'm oriented with that, so I can just go into UNISA and then take up that course, right? And then eventually they called back to say like, hey, dude, we're gonna offer you a spot. Do you still want to come? And I was like, yeah, I'm coming. And this is the year, by the way, where there was the water crisis in Cape Town. So I moved to Cape Town on that year.
Yeah. Great timing.
The best.
That's interesting. So you move to Explore, and then at what point do you now say, this is it?
Right. So this is the first project that we had. Funny enough, it was about creating like a SQL database for Cape Town's water usage. Right. We needed to find the population data. We need to find the areas in Cape Town, the different wards, the water usage, and then that normalize that database and then create these tables that link to each other so that we can pull the data into Power BI or do whatever analysis that we wanted. So this is my first introduction to SQL. Python, yeah, I've done Python second year. So SQL now I have to do SQL. Right, that one hit me like because with Python, you can follow the intuition of the coding language, right? But with SQL, it's just machine language.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense. But after I think I've learned and I became our Python code reading from the database. We didn't import CSV this time. And then we're doing the analysis. And then as more data gets pulled into our database, our analysis updates. I think I can go ahead with this. That's when I was fully committed to, you know what, I'm gonna trust the process. I'm gonna learn whatever they throw my way.
That's interesting. Okay, so you finish at Explore. Then what was the next step after that?
Right. So the first 100 cohort at Explore, we were sponsored by BCX. Okay. And then BCX promised the top 30 that, you know, you're gonna get jobs.
Okay.
So that year, what was it? It was 2018. So 2018, that Telkom announces that it's gonna let go of 3,000 people.
Mhm.
So now this conflicts with the promise that was made that, the top 30, you guys are going to get jobs at Telkom. So BCX is part of Telkom, right? So now the program is done. I went to a few interviews, gotten a few low ball offers that I was like, you know what, I'm not going to take this offer because it was a company that I looked up to.
It's okay. Move around.
This is the towards the end of our program now. I go to an interview for like one of the founders that I look up to, right? So they have this new startup. It's in the medical space, and I'm really interested in the medical space. And basically, what they wanted a data person to come through so that you can build a dashboard, so that you can build a chatbot, and then you can monitor traffic on their website and also manage their data flow. So basically, they needed a data analyst, a data scientist, a data engineer, and a SQL developer. Yeah. But it was boiled up into like one role. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? That is very standard, by the way, in startups. Like, yeah, that's how it goes, right? And then this guy gave me a global offer, and then I declined that one. And then I remember going home, bruh. This is December. So now this is the part where most of my colleagues, they've got jobs. Like they're posting on LinkedIn, thank God, thank you, the company so and so for the opportunity. I'm going home. I don't know what I'm going to be doing next year, January.
Yeah.
And I'm still waiting for an offer from Telkom, the same Telkom that's letting go of 3,000 people. So I was not in a good space throughout that festive season. Jan came, and then the guys at Explore called us back to say, hey, we're interested in a few of you guys coming back and then auditing the second version of the course that we have for the following year. Right. So I flew back to Cape Town, spoke to my landlord, explained to him the situation. He was like, nah, come through. And then whilst we're doing this thing, we did it for 2 months. It was for Jan and February. So whilst we're doing this, we were waiting for job offers from Telkom. And yeah, they never came. Yeah. So during this waiting period, one of the guys from Explore says, hey man, I know this guy, he's starting this company. It's going to be just data scientists, like doing our own thing. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, it sounds awesome. Like, as a founding member, you get shares in the company, and then the packages, the pay was also like pretty awesome. I was like, no, cool, man, I'll come through. And then I think a bunch of us, about six of us, and then we joined the startup. And then I was there for like 2 years. By the way, after I signed that contract, that's when Telkom sent their contract to me. They say like, hey guys, this is, I think, mid-Feb. Yeah, I've already accepted another offer. But anyways, so yeah, and then I joined the startup.
So this is it. Okay, you've actually mentioned so many things here that I really want to take apart a bit. Yeah. One of it is, and I try to get into the minds of some of my guests' decision making where finances and money is concerned. You've got no offers. How do you say no to a lowball offer? Like, because like this is such a real thing, because, and I talk about, especially on LinkedIn, I talk about compensation and whatever a lot, because I feel like one of the things that we get failed at is you're not taught how to actually negotiate a salary. You're not taught how to actually say, well, no. I actually had a conversation with a recruiter yesterday where she mentions a salary range. I'm like, okay, I think I can work with that, and then after some time, she asked me, okay, so how much are you making? I give an amount, like I'm making X. And then they're like, okay, well, your X is like quite lower than the budget for this role. Normally offers get around 10 or 20% extra. And they're asking me to move from Joburg all the way to Cape Town. And I'm like, not a chance. There is no way I'll move from here all the way to Cape Town for a 10% increase. Like it's a non-starter. So for me, I've got the leverage of the fact that, well, I've got other offers, firstly. Secondly, I've got an actual job. So it's not like I'm desperate. But your case is different because one, I mean, we tend to, no, don't worry about peer pressure and whatever. It's there, like social pressure is there. People you grew up with, people you studied with, they're showing their one series over there. Another person's bought an A class. You've just spent a year at some weird academy that we're not sure is an actual real thing. And then you get an offer from someone you actually respect and you say no. How do you do that? Like, where does that actually come from? Like, to be able to not have a plan and say, but I'd rather not have a plan than to accept this lowball offer. Like, where does that sense of value and especially where salary is concerned, like, how do you actually navigate that in terms of your decision making?
All right, I think for context, and I try not to do this when I share this story. I try not to talk about the actual numbers themselves, but I think for you to be able to understand, my thinking process, it'll make more sense for me to say the numbers. Right. So when Telkom was making us those promises that, okay, next year when we take 8% of you guys, so that's 30 people from the 100, the top 30%, we can expect the starting salaries to be at 21K, right? That was the base. Like, you'll start there, but then you can negotiate, and also based on your qualifications and your experience, then, but it's not going to be lower than 21K. So that was the communication, right? And I was like, great. So now I have this reference point. So every interview that I went to a lot of interviews, but yeah, I don't want to lie, I went to a lot, and that was always my reference point, right? And then this guy says, so what are your salary expectations, right? So I just repeat back what I know to be true from a data scientist. So this guy is a senior data scientist, and he said that your entry level salary as a data scientist is 21K, right? That's what we're promising you guys, and it was true. I also saw it in the offer letter, right? But then this one, I gave him that number. So this is after me making the establishment that, okay, so what I'm kind of getting from them, because the job advertisement said that you're going to be joining a vibrant data analytics team. But the more and more I question, like I ask questions and then he responds, I'm kind of getting the picture that they don't have a data team. They would like to have a data team. So I'm going to be that person who's establishing the data team, meaning that I'm going to be a data analyst, I'm going to be a data scientist building a chatbot, machine learning chatbot, is that you don't want to make mistakes. And then I'm going to have to build, so a role of a data engineer. So in Cape Town. So that's rent money.
Yeah.
Minus transport, minus groceries. So that, like, when I pushed back and said, like, no, that's too little, I don't think I can do that. And it was like, you know what we can do then, we can maybe get you an extra 4K, and then we'll talk June again based on your performance increase. And this was for 1 year. So the post was for 1 year. So I thought to myself, I'm going to lock myself into a 1 year position where I'm making rent money. I'm going to be frustrated, and I'll probably end up hating data science.
Yeah.
And I just, as you said, I just started dating data science, and I was in the honeymoon stage at that time. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to get discouraged that way. So my thinking process was that, let me not lock myself into a 1 year contract that I know that I'm not going to be happy at, because I'm going to be doing 3 jobs.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he'll say, this is what we brought you for, and you agree to it. He's not going to say, you're not paying me enough to do 3 roles.
Yeah.
So that's why I decided to get on a bus from Cape Town, get back to Northern Cape, and hope for the best following year.
That's very interesting. And so in the case, okay, so that happens. Now there's a startup, like, because I'm trying to understand how you make your decisions. So now there's a startup that You know, and I mean, the thing about startups is that most of them fail. Yeah. So, you know, like it doesn't really matter how brilliant the guy is. You know, this can really go south very quickly. And then you've got another offer that comes in where it was the one that you were actually waiting for, was the one that you were really hoping for. So you end up choosing, no, I'll actually go with the startup. How did you make that decision? Was it just a thing of, okay, I've already agreed to this, I can't go back on my word? Or was it a thing of, this might just be interesting? Like, how did you actually make that decision?
So there were two things going on in my mind at that point. So when we were coming into the company, you know, the company launch, there was talks and promises of like, hey, if you're really interested in studying, we'll be able to sponsor that for you. Right? And I knew I wanted to do a statistics degree. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll go for that. And also another interesting was that we had a unique opportunity to create the kind of working culture that we needed, because there was no working culture at this company. It's a brand new company, and it's a group of data scientists. So like this is a technical people, right, with different backgrounds. One is from finance, like one has a master's degree. Like it was an interesting group that we put together to the point where I also thought like, okay, cool, this could become great. And you know, icing on the cake, I had stake in the company. You know, when you have a stake in the company, your efforts are very different. You just the salary. You know, you want to see this company become worth something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And so you're with them for 2 years. Why are you still with them?
Yeah. Why am I still with them?
Are you still with them right now?
Oh, no. So we started it in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, June, that's when I left. I think I was the last one of the Explore co-founders to leave. So I left the last year, June.
Okay. I want to ask a question, but I'm not sure how to phrase it.
Yeah.
Without
Shoot, man, shoot. I'll give you what I can give you.
Okay. Why?
Shoot. Why did I leave? So, like I said that, you know, part of the attractive part of working for a startup is that it doesn't have a working culture. You define the culture, you make it what you want it to be. You can influence the direction in which you know, the company moves in. Because as a startup, right, like you said, a lot of startups fail because they went into market with a product that's up, and then, you know, they're priced out of existence. Right. So year number 2 we would move into, and we were not moving in that direction.
Okay.
Right. So everything was because, you know, you can be a startup only up until a certain point, right? I think at the year number 2, like, you've proved yourself now, you're no longer a startup. You need to operate as a company. You need to start taking things from established companies that are working.
Yeah.
Right. And I felt like at that stage, we were not getting there, man. And I saw I did some simulations in my mind, and I was like, you know what? At the current rate that we are moving, we are not going to get to where we need to get. I don't want to keep building this in your career. You want to get to a point where you influence, you know, the strategy. You want to influence business decisions. You want to add value that will convert to you.
Yes.
So I was in this state where I felt like the initial love and where I thought we would be at that point, I just don't see it happening. And I communicated this with my manager at the time that, the current momentum, the way we're flowing, there's certain things that I thought would be in place, but they are not in place. Right. Yeah. So I think that was it.
Yeah. Okay. No, fair enough. And then, so you moved there, what, June of last year?
Yeah.
So you moved there, and then now you're in a different. So this is an established company that you're with now.
Yeah. Now I'm with an established company.
Okay. And then how's the work environment? How's it different from in the instance of being a part of a startup? Because now you are
right. Yeah.
Now
so
you're
with
like
an established company, with an established company, man, there's the HR department. Startups, you don't have HR department. there's IT. So what IT does is they own the infrastructure. So when you want data, you go to them, you do your justifications, and then they give you the logins. I don't do that. Somebody else does that. So that's the great part about working in an established company, that I get to plug into the data, and then I can do the data science and data analytics stuff that I want to do, instead of just spending more time and more energy figuring out how to set up a SQL instance in Azure and all those things. And also the added benefit as well is that you get exposed to the business side of things now, right? Because at a startup, we don't have enough time in a day. I need to get this thing working and running today. So the business, let's leave it to somebody else to worry about that. So now I can sit in these meetings and see how actually, decisions are taken, what sort of things you need to say for a business case to be processed through, and also what things that you need to show and say to show that, okay, cool, now we've demonstrated value. There you go. Like I'm learning, I'm expanding just beyond the technical skills.
That's
right. And also, at an established company, you have to clock in at 7. You have to clock in at exactly at 7. Not like a startup.
At a startup, you're given a range.
You have to clock out.
Yeah.
Because with the startup culture, right? We have a project. Hey guys, we need to make sure the solution works by Friday. And then you go in at the coffee shop or you work from home, you just make sure the solution works by Friday. And this is a different environment, and you have to wear shirts every day. I don't wear t-shirts anymore. I love t-shirts. I love flops. I have to have shoes on. Yeah. So that's a different environment. And it kind of makes sense because I share the working space with different departments and different people that conduct and dress a certain way. So I need to the t-shirt and flip-flops at
No, man. So if, again, because of the idea of trying to re-engineer or reverse engineer your success, would you actually think you were better off having started out in a startup where you basically find yourself playing multiple roles, having to put on multiple hats to get a project or whatever else out by a specific day, versus joining an established team where it's an established data science team? It's a more mature team. They have different roles for different people. I mean, you've got your BI teams, you've got your actual data scientists and whatever. So if you had to look back and you had to start from scratch, which option would you say is actually better?
Right. I think with me, I was really looking forward to learning a lot all at once. Do you know what I mean? I was willing even to take that role where I had to be a data analyst, a data scientist, and a data engineer, because I was open to the idea of learning. I need to learn as much as possible, so that I can be competent and I can understand actually how my role as a data scientist, I need to support the data analyst, or I need to support the data engineer to make sure that they get things in the right format that they need as well to be able to do their jobs. But for a different person who who needs, because I think I needed a mentor, and my mentors were basically YouTubers. So those were the people that I looked up to. I wanted answers to certain questions that I couldn't get from their videos.
It's okay.
Right. Anyways, I was saying, for somebody who needs a mentor, like you need somebody who's gone through the journey and then they are able to advise you. I think for that person, I would recommend they go to an established company that has a data science team. Whereas for a self-starter who know enough to be able to get that information by themselves, I would recommend they go to a startup, because I mean, I know I make a lot of jokes about the startup culture, but it's a great learning experience. Within a space of 6 months, you would know so much that it would take you probably 2 years to learn at an established data science team. Because you involved in this area, you're involved in that area, you're involved in all the stages of the project, I mean, an entire solution until it ships out. Like you are involved intimately, you know how it works. You can actually take a step back and then make your own solution.
Yeah.
So I think that's the value that you get from a startup, that you learn so much very fast. But you also need an environment that will allow you to learn, right? If you're in an environment that has, that requires deliveries every day, I don't think, even if it's a startup, I don't think it would be the right environment for you. You need where learning is encouraged.
Yeah. So in hindsight.
So yeah, but for me, so for me, I was actually coming to that.
Yeah.
I was actually coming to answer your question, because I didn't actually answer your question.
Yeah.
So if I had to do it all over again, what is it that I was going to do? I think I would probably go for a startup again.
Okay.
For that reason that, you get that freedom of expression. You get to be involved in all aspects of a solution, right? And then eventually, once you have all of those in check, now you can move into a bigger company. Now, you need to learn a bit about the business side of things. I think, so I hope I answered the question.
No, you did. So now, I mean, right now you've spent basically the past 18 months, give or take. It's actually a bit shorter than that, so it's like 8 months now. Now you're seeing the more business side of things. Are you starting to see where perhaps some of the things went wrong in the startup you are part of? Like, are you starting to see, oh, wait, we didn't do this. We perhaps didn't have this established. We didn't have a process for this either. And that was perhaps hampering our growth.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So, when you have freedom of expression, you don't really have that rigorous structure in place. In itself, it's a victim of its own success, that you can freely express yourself. But at the end of the day, the business has to make money. Yeah. At the end of the day, when the business makes money, you get more people. And then when you have more people, you get to focus on specific things rather than focusing in the entire chain for a data science solution. So I think, yeah, we needed that rigor in frameworks to say that we only take projects that do this, like they meet a specific criteria, and then it takes us a certain amount of time to make sure that this is in place. I think we needed that. Yeah. Even though what we had was working, I think that would have enhanced what we were doing.
That makes sense. And so, do you actually have plans of ever doing that again? Do you think about that as a
that's a doozy. So I think, like, maybe later in my life, man. Say now I'm confident in my business acumen. I know the policies, I know the frameworks, I can implement and use those to drive value from the data science endeavors that we take. So once I'm confident in all of that, I think eventually then, because I still like the delivery structure of a data startup company, whereby you don't necessarily to be at the office for 9 hours.
Yeah.
So eventually, I think I would like to move back to that, like later in life, once I'm confident in my experience, once I'm confident in like, you know, also I'm learning I'm revisiting the solutions architect certification exam that I wanted to take. So once all of this stuff, all these little technical things are sorted out, and then I have established myself also in the industry. And you have to think about it like 3 years, I think it's what, 4 years? Yeah, 4 years is it's good, but I don't think I have that solid track record yet to start thinking about going back into the startup environment. So I think maybe that track record and the experience that I would have gained by then would enable me to run the startup efficiently the way I would like it, or the way I think it should be ran.
That makes sense. And the reason why I'm asking this is because, and this is where I was hoping to actually get to this conversation with you as well. It's like, you've got huge unemployment in South Africa. And then you've got a small group of people that perhaps have started their own businesses. And they're like, young people should start their own businesses, you know. And I don't agree with that. I think, compare what you actually knew as a graduate. Like, you knew close to nothing, you know. My argument is, especially people that, let's say, the stage that you're basically moving into, and perhaps even the stage that I'm actually moving into in my career, where now you're actually moving more towards becoming a manager, you're moving more towards becoming a team lead and whatever else. Like, it's almost, a corporate structure is basically a pyramid. That means it gets narrower the higher up you go. You know, so eventually it doesn't really, in some companies, and you see this all the time, especially with your older companies, a person can be at a point just below, let's say, a team lead for 15 years. They are waiting for their team lead to retire. Like, that's honestly what's going on. You know, there is no other way they're going to get this job. You know, this guy either needs to die or retire, and perhaps then you have a chance to move up. My opinion is that those are the people that actually should be encouraged to actually be starting companies. Those are the people, when you're like 5, 10 years in, you now understand the industry. You have a basic framework of the knowledge and the skills required within this industry. You are at the place now where either you've been leading a team, or you've now constantly have been given more and more projects where you are the lead on that project. You've got a team of people on there. Even if it's a short project or a small project, you are getting accustomed to having a team of people there. And basically you are seeing the project out. In my opinion, those are the people we ought to be pushing towards starting their own businesses and starting their own companies, because there are only so many C-suite positions out there, you know, and we're not all going to be in those C-suite positions. You know, so for me, that's my thought process on that. What are your thoughts about that? Like, what are your thoughts about, listen, you're putting too much pressure on these graduates. The people that we actually should be telling, listen, you've learned enough. You actually know enough. You're 5 years in, you're 10 years in. Like, you're actually pretty good at what you're doing. Maybe take some of this, look at some of the problems you're seeing in the industry, and make a decision to try and solve them. Because if this doesn't work, it's a lot easier for someone like you to come back into the industry, find a role. You've got the experience, as opposed to saying to a graduate, you need to start your own company. 18 months in, it's failed. You don't have any options, because you still have to now go back, look for a graduate program or whatever else. I think it's an unreasonable expectation, and the people who should be pushing are the people at the more middle management roles. What are your thoughts on that idea? And I think, I personally think,
I think that, yeah,
I think those are the people that perhaps could really aid a lot of this.
I think the phrase, I run my own business, is a very romantic statement to make.
Yeah.
And it's cool to say that. I'm a founder, CEO, and the likes. So people who are saying that people should start companies, I think they're comparing the startup culture in the States because it's working. Like you see, every day there's a new young billionaire, right?
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because they have a different market as opposed to SA.
Yeah.
They have a different culture, like, and the way they believe in technology is very different than in South Africa, right? I think some people, and I know this is probably going to be a hot take. I'm not telling anyone what to do with their lives, but I think some people should not start companies. Reason for that is because 9 to 5 gets a bad rap, right? Like, you don't want a 9 to 5 slaving away for a company. Man, when you run your own business, it's 24/7.
Yes.
It's 24/7 is not better than 9 to 5. It's actually worse.
Yeah.
Because if you look at your pay per hour when you work at the 9 to 5 as opposed to when you work at 24/7, you would be making less money, but you would have a title of CEO. And I don't think that's a good idea. And just like you said, man, I think you need to be in the industry. You need to understand what is lacking in the market. You need to identify those opportunities where, the business that you start or the solution, whatever it is that you provide, right? It fixes a problem.
Yes.
Because otherwise, if you tell everybody to start companies, we'll start solving problems they don't need to be solved.
Exactly.
There's an app called Yo. So what is it, Yo or Bro? Yeah, I think it's Bro. So what that app is, I add you as a contact on the app, and then I send you the message, bro. And then you also send back the message, bro. That's the app.
No ways.
So if you encourage people to just start businesses for the sake of being owners, with the hopes of being a billionaire at the age of 21, we will get those solutions out there. Exactly. I agree with you fully, man. You need some industry experience. You need some mentoring. Like I went through my career wishing that, okay, cool. There I needed a mentor because when you get into the work environment, right, there's a lot happening. Business works. You're trying to understand your role to the business. You're trying to also reorient yourself, like your personal life as well. So when you have a mentor that provides that kind of guidance for you, I think later in life, you'll be a better businessman because now you have the guidance, now you have the experience, now you've identified a gap in the market, or you identified where a particular solution is needed and it's not there. So you don't need to advertise it.
Yeah.
The moment people ask you, like, what does your company do? And then you explain, like, oh no, my company does 1, 2, 3. They get it immediately.
Yeah.
And to extend your sentiment that, those people who have been in those positions that are causing traffic for 15 years, I think, one can say the same thing about MPs. I mean, there's a lot of MPs that are causing traffic, that need to give younger people a chance.
Yeah.
And then go start their own businesses.
100%. I think in America, they call them career politicians, like people who have no real context in the actual job market. They are just there consistently. Like they're literally just in the corridors of parliament all of their careers. Like they have no real context of what's going on in the actual job market, what's going on in actual industries. And those are the people you're expecting to make decisions in there. Well, you mentioned politics, so I'd like to get into politics as well. I agree
with you. It's a slippery slope.
No, it's not going to be like a controversial one. Especially being a young person, is one of the things that I'm coming to understand is the naivety of being young is the belief that you now have everything figured out. You now understand the mistakes of the previous generation, and you are going to fix it now. And so the previous generation needs to step aside, hand over the baton, we've got this now, you know. And I think a lot of that is true and a lot of that is necessary. And I think this is where the need for having, let's say, 2 or more generations coexisting, making decisions in, let's say, government actually necessary. Because one, sometimes the answer is we need to find something else. We need to do something different.
Yeah.
And that's when you need young people. But sometimes
Definitely.
the answer is we need to continue doing it the way we've done it. And that is the right answer. You know, like you can come out as a young person and say, okay, guys, driving on the left-hand side of the road is getting old. It's time to drive on the right. You know, the answer is no, we need to actually keep driving on the left. You're just going to confuse people. Like you're trying to fix a thing that's not broken. You know, and driving on the right is not going to improve the livelihoods of people in any way. You know, the amount of cars you would have to change, the amount, like literally the cost of just implementing this idea that you now have is not even worth this idea. You understand? So I strongly believe
I think taxi drivers will be the pioneers. They'll tell you like we've been driving on the right hand side.
We've been 100%.
Everybody thought we were crazy.
Look at you now.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's where the idea of having a mentor comes in. It's like, yes, you are young, you've got these nice ideas. Yes, it's going to change a lot of things, but sometimes you need someone who's actually experienced, who's going to say, no, do it the way all of us have done it. Because that is the way it works.
Okay. Let me ask you a question then, based on that. And by the way, I agree with you 100%. That if we get rid of experienced people and then we think like inexperienced people that bring fresh thinking, they're gonna get things done. It's gonna fall flat on its face, right? We need those two working in hand. We need experience and then we need fresh thinking. So let me ask you this, right? I mean, you're a young person in South Africa and you're very aware of politics. So what is one thing that you think, it doesn't have to be a specific thing. It can even maybe be an industry or a section of life in South Africa that needs fresh thinking. And then what is that one thing that you think it's been working right for the past 24 years, it needs to keep working the same way?
I think one thing we really need to rethink in the context of South Africa, we need to rethink our concept of education.
Right. And what do you mean by that?
I think we, for whatever reason, we take some of our brightest minds and what we do is that we prop up foreign multinationals. So you've got some of your brightest minds that could fix some of the problems your country has. But you go and you say to them, no, what you actually want to do is become a CA and work for PwC. You know, if we have that, if you go and you keep saying, if you keep saying that to some of your brightest minds, we don't end up with that.
Right.
You understand? So, and the idea, the part of the problem is the fact that the initial parts of his career, he followed that notion. He's a former accountant at PwC. You understand? Yeah. So it's like, if he kept on with that, you understand? So it's like, you've got some of your brightest minds that can solve some of the biggest problems in your country, like things like manufacturing or whatever else, shake up the retail space. But you're taking them and you're basically exporting. They're fixing bigger problems, or they're fixing problems that essentially your country ends up worse off. But if you were to find a way to basically have some of your brightest people, and you say to them, listen, we actually need you to start thinking about some of the problems we have here. Some of those issues that we have going on here, if you can spend time thinking about some of those issues, you don't actually need to solve the problem. We don't necessarily need you to solve the problem. If we, at the end of your career, if we can be 1% better as a nation, you've crushed it. I think we need more of that.
Right. So if I'm hearing you, we need to rethink education at the higher level.
Yes, like we need to rethink like the very purpose of it.
I mean, yeah.
So it's like,
okay. So I was thinking more like at university level.
Yeah, no. Like I would argue like the university, at the university level, it's almost too late. At university level, you've already decided you want to work for PwC. You're on a PwC bursary at university.
I think the market has already decided that you want to work for PwC.
Exactly. You know, and the thing about it is, I agree with you that the market, yes, has that, but also is in the fact that if you can take some of your brightest people and find a way to actually incentivize the idea of looking at some of your bigger problems and not just a thing of, I think it's Seth Godin who says this, and I really agree with this. There's like, if you've got students in your class that will say to you, will this be on the test? You basically have people on your class that are not actually interested in learning. They are just here to get the certificate. They're here to actually get the mark. You understand? So if you've got consistently metric papers leaking, students cheating, you failed in your attempts to educate, because you've taught them that it doesn't actually matter that you learn this. What matters is the mark. And that to me is where I feel like we lose some of our brightest.
No, I get you there.
So for me, that definitely is one thing that
that's actually a very, you should say that, because I mean, looking at all the decisions that the government has made recently, bringing in Cuban doctors, bringing in Cuban engineers, donating 50 million to Cubans in crisis because they don't have food. I mean, it's an interesting predicament that as a young person, as a doctor, you look at the situation, and I'm not saying doctors are not employed, but I'm just saying that you look at these things the way they've been done at that level. It's an interesting thing. Anyways, I think we're getting off topic now. Another thing was the one that you think like it's been working the way it's working. We need to carry on.
I think, and this is going to be like, I'll probably have people throwing rocks at me and stuff. I think climate change is not our problem as Africans. We need to continue pumping as much coal to try and get our stuff on these grids properly. We need to get our electricity supply properly. We didn't cause this problem. So the idea that we shouldn't use our resources for some agreement wherever doesn't make sense to me. You know, if we've got like an insane amount of coal in our backyard, and someone's gonna say, no, well, it's causing a problem in our thing because you've used up your coal. You've said you are now a first world country. You've set yourself up. You've set your economy up. Now that you are done setting your economy up, you're gonna come back and tell your developing economies, no, we need you to sort of like change the way in which you do this. So like, listen, no, what created this problem was when you were setting up your economy. You can worry about fixing that. We need to worry about fixing our economy. That to me is one thing that I think we should continue with. It's not our problem. We didn't create it. So I think we're too, and this is where this whole, like we're too focused. Sometimes you need to ignore the global problems and focus on your local problems. You know, so.
And at the same time, yeah, I do understand that also at the same time, we are global citizens. But like the example that I brought up earlier, I want to say that they're donating 50 million to Cuba to help. It's a good gesture, but if you look at South Africans living in poverty, like it's pretty grim.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
okay, no, I hear you. Like logically, it makes sense because a lot of the first world countries that want to reach net zero by 20 because they had a consistent supply of electricity. We have interrupted supply of electricity that affects businesses, that affects the growth of GDP and all of those things. So I think there you have a point. I'm not sure though, like, maybe, yeah.
Like it's a tricky thing. It's one of those, what's worse? I mean, if you are a family, let's say, in some township, and you've got a coal-powered stove, let's say for argument's sake, I mean, most people don't have it. How are you going to say to that family, you should stop cooking? Because we want to reach zero net. They're going to say, listen, your net is not my problem. My problem is feeding my family. You understand? So I think
that's zero. Yeah. So a person who's worried about, because their future is lunchtime. We're thinking about the future that in the future, the global temperature is going to increase.
Yes.
But they need to reach lunch. So they have a different perspective in terms of problem solving.
Exactly.
But I agree with you, Damien. I agree with you. I think you make a good point there. I didn't mean to derail you, by the way. I was just curious on what you're thinking was around.
No, those are my thoughts. Like, I think I would actually like to also hear your thoughts. I think there's so many things I feel like we really do need to imagine. I think we need to rethink even our notions of democracy. Does it actually work? That's an interesting question.
Let me stop you right there before you get yourself in trouble. So here's my answer to here's my answer to the first question. What is it that I think we need to rethink?
Yes.
I think the way we do elections need to be rethought.
100%.
And here's why. Everybody has got a right to vote. I'm not saying this person should be allowed to vote, that person shouldn't be allowed to vote.
Yes.
We focus on the political parties, right? So we say South Africa as we stand. Here we are, say we created a national KPI for education. You say that the mass pass rate for your public school is this. We want it to be this. We look at healthcare. The stage. We want it to be this. We look at manufacturing. Some manufacturing is a political party. Well, the political party now is going to converse on how they're going to increase, those KPIs. And I know I'm coming at it from a startup perspective, right? So after 4 years, if you haven't effected the changes that you promised, you are not eligible to run for the second round of elections. So if my political party doesn't meet the KPIs, it means that we have to wait for the other cycle of elections. So then the number two from the pre-focus on this, how did you improve jobs? How did you the economy for private companies to absorb more young people? Right now, we're sitting at a 30%, nothing to lose. What do you think is going to happen? The very same things we saw happening when they were going malls to malls looting, because they have nothing to lose. An idle mind is the devil's playground. So that guy is not tired. Like, if he has work, he goes to work 9 to 5, he comes back, he's tired. He needs to get ready for work the following day. He doesn't have time to be plotting which mall to go and destroy.
Yeah.
So I think if we rethink the election system, because I mean, if you keep voting one political party into power consecutively, so what you're effectively doing is that you're taking the voice from the people. So if you take the voice from the people, they can mess up as much as they want. They know they'll be in power next year. That's why they're able to get away with such brazen corruption. They keep getting elected and into power. They know this. So if they thought that their existence was threatened by the lack of performance, I think we would see a very different ruling party.
100%. Like, I think what you make mention of is the idea of accountability, but on the side of service delivery. Like, we are not even saying these things. You are the ones that said you would improve on these things. Now we are asking you, how have you exactly? You are literally setting up your. It's basically similar to OKRs, where you are the one that's setting these things up. So we are measuring you based on what you said you were going to do. We didn't say you should do this. You were canvassing, saying this is what you were going to do, and you didn't do that. I think that's actually pretty clever. I think that makes a lot of sense. I could get around that. Like that could really change things. So on your side of things, what do you think we should continue doing?
I think what we need to keep doing, but probably think of, I think it's a good idea, NSFAS. It has given education to a lot of people that would have never afforded education. But I think we need to maybe cast our scope wide, right? Because right now it's universities. We need technical institutions, like they also, like, if they could expand to that and also cover those ones. Like, if you want to do trading, if I want to go and be an electrician, right? You can get a bus and the more you work. Like, I think NSFAS, that was a good idea.
100%. I think that actually I've not even thought about NSFAS, and that's exactly true. I think, and I've been thinking about this a lot, the idea that we don't like talking about it, but the impact that IQ has on your outcome in life. Like, you and I are talking right now as data professionals, and we can talk about engineering, we'll talk about proofs in mathematics and whatever else. Like, these are not average individual conversations, and it's easy for us to look at that and say, man, dude, like, mathematics is not that difficult. It's just X and Y, and you're adding these things together. But a lot of that is linked to the fact that you just are, whether it's a gift, whether it's genetics, whether it's a curse, doesn't really matter. You've got an IQ that allows you to do that, but not everyone has that. Not everyone has that that type of IQ. And some people, they are better off making a living working with their hands. That's just the reality of it. And I think you're absolutely right in the fact that I think the scope needs to take into account the fact that there are certain things that just aren't these people's fault. Like, if I've got a low IQ, what the hell am I supposed to do about that? Like, working hard is not going to change that.
Right.
You understand? Like, I can work hard.
Yeah, we can try to crack calculus.
Yeah. So I think.
No, definitely, man, definitely.
So I think just to start wrapping up here, I've got one question, and it's linked to this conversation that we've been having now for the past 15 minutes or so. You are basically given unilateral power over South Africa for one day. No one can question anything you do, but you're not allowed to do anything that will benefit you personally. What 3 things would you improve in South Africa?
That is a dangerous premise you are setting up there to give me unilateral power over South Africa. But in this imagined 24 hours, I think for me, my interest lies in, first of all, getting consistent and reliable supply of electricity.
100%.
I think for that one, and I know nuclear power is not popular, bro. Like, it's not the best. But here's my argument against the Chernobyl rebuttal you normally get when you bring up nuclear power, is that was technology that was made in the 70s. It was what? Yeah, 70s. Right? If you drive a car in the 70s right now, do you think it's going to be fuel efficient?
No.
Do you think it complies to all the safety regulations that it needs to comply to today? It doesn't.
Yeah.
I think technology has improved enough whereby we can give nuclear power an opportunity. So I would say maybe every province should have their own grid.
Okay.
And then have a nuclear power plant. So I would make 9 nuclear power plants. Well, let me say 8.
Because we still have Cuba.
Cape Town is not part of South Africa. So I will have Cape Town does have a nuclear power. So that's the first thing that I would change.
Okay.
That consistent supply of electricity, right? The second part that I would change is, like you said, man, education needs to be reimagined. And I think the way we teach maths and physics, or don't teach maths and physics at your lower levels, it's very poor. It's subpar. I saw it with myself because I went through the public education system. Grade 11, we had no physics teacher, but we wrote exams, we had assignments and all these things without a physics teacher. So basically, I was reading what I can understand and then teaching other students that, just imagine, man, I just learned this topic now and I'm teaching it back to other students. So that we were set up for disaster there. Yeah. So that one, I think I would, I'm not sure, like a lot of privatizing of education is happening right now, but what that does now, quality of learning into the public.
Yeah.
School system. So I think we need to revamp high schools and make them push a student who's very interested in artistic expression to do pure mathematics, right? And that's why you end up having situations like, you know, your low pass grade in mathematics.
That's interesting. So I think I actually only thought about
so those systems, and obviously it's not going to be perfect. I'm not saying artistic people shouldn't learn. Yeah. And number 3, I think something has to happen with the crime. Something has just got to give. And of law enforcement officers, like most of these guys, right, unemployment rate. So most of these guys are getting into law enforcement as a job. They're not police officers. They're getting there as a job to be able to speak between their lives and enforcing the law. I think that's why you see a lot of things that are happening. We need to relook at that, revamp it.
That's interesting.
We need to look at the hiring process and make sure that the people who become cops actually want to become cops. Yeah, so those are my top 3, right? I know indirectly, so they do benefit me because I'm very interested and passionate about having electricity. I mean, I grew up without electricity, so trust me, in winter you want electricity.
Yeah.
So and the crime situation again. I mean, I've been a victim of crime, so, and I know that the accountability, like we experience crime, how is that resolved? It just ends up in air, like there's no resolution whatsoever.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember when I was a student in Pretoria, I was there by ShopRite in SLM, right? I packed my bag outside ShopRite, and then there's this gentleman with a hammer. She's hammering the lock on my bicycle. I see a cop van pass by. I'm telling the cop, like, hey, this guy, he has a weapon, he wants to steal my bicycle. You know what he said to me? That I needed to know his name. I needed to know where he lives so that he can put that in the suspect form for me to open a case. And I'm like, yes, it's happening right now. If you would just come. By the way, this is 2015 in Sunnyside. I'm telling the cop, like, he's right there right now. If he would just come right now, he's like, no, man, you need to open a case. Just know where he stays and what his name is. So what is the chance that the gentleman who wants to steal my bike is going to tell me his name? He's going to give me his address.
Unbelievable.
So I had that interaction with law enforcement, and I think from that point, and also, I mean, if you think about it, man, growing up, we were always threatened with cops as a child. If you don't behave, they're going to call the cops, right? So that thing has been reinforced in me that cops are a negative thing that you don't want.
Yeah.
So now I have to engage in the cop, and then that's the kind of engagement I have with them. And yeah, so for me, I don't think they are winning in the PR department. They don't help themselves as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So we need to change the image of law enforcement in this country.
I agree. I think
those are the three boring things that I would change. If it was up to me, I would buy Bitcoin, I would buy Ethereum, I would buy NFTs. Those three.
Where do you see things like data and now we've got the blockchain, we've got NFTs in the context of South Africa? Do you actually see us being able to be actually a big player in that right now? Or is there a thing that you feel like is coming? And if companies were to actually start looking into that direction, what would they actually need to do?
Right. I think, Professor Tshilidzi likes to talk about the fourth industrial revolution. If you read his book, he outlines the certain areas in South Africa that could be impacted and improved by, technology, particularly in data. And I think this is the first industrial revolution that I feel like South Africa can go toe-to-toe with the best of them. We have a lot of initiatives in this country that are producing, that are bringing in talent globally. Deep learning in Dava. I had the opportunity to attend it while I was still at Explore. It was in Stellenbosch. Man, the people that came there, Jeffrey Hinton from Google, and we had this guy, what is his name? And he was part of the guys who created DeepMind. A conference that was a French idea for some vet students. Like, they're just those people, they had that idea to create this conference. So I think in as a country, we are headed in the right direction. Are we going at the right speed? I am not a huge gap in hiring for policies or frameworks that companies have in place, right? This is a very weird position to recruit for. And I say this because, we were also looking to have another person join our team. And then, I mean, the way I posted the post, right? It's very strange. It doesn't have a matured policy or structure that you can recruit for. So I think there's still that misalignment between companies and people who are looking for these jobs. Yeah. These companies, they know they want your data skills, but they don't know how to get that information or the confidence from you that you have this kind of skills that we want. And also these guys don't know how to tell this company that, hey, I'm the right person that you're looking for. Because I was going through some of the CVs and I looked at, you look at the experience, man, it's there, there's no consistency. Like you don't get that confidence that, okay, cool, this person applied for this role because they're interested in this role. They're interested in getting employed. Like you kind of have that disconnect.
That's
so
very true.
I'm very, personally, I'm very confident that, we can compare with the best of them globally. It's just that our own companies in absorbing these skills, it's happening at a very low pace, and it's happening awkwardly as well, because they'll recruit for a data analyst while they want somebody just to write a SQL query. You know what I mean? Like, and then you get there, it's just Excel work. Like it's that disconnect that I don't think they've reconciled the fact that this is a new role altogether. This is a new function. We need to recruit for this function. We cannot use the old methods that we used to use that worked for particular roles. Because if you're recruiting for a doctor, like it's a very different thing than when you recruit for a data scientist. As a doctor, you need to have certain papers. You need to have certain experiences, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. I was actually having a conversation with a recruiter earlier today, and she was asking me, she's like, okay, I see you've got cloud computing certifications. Do you have any certifications in Python or R? I'm like, there are no certifications. It's like, oh, I had no idea. I'm like, no, what you actually look for are the projects. You look for the projects, you look for the body of work this person has had worked on, the role that they played in that body of work, and whatever else. And I think it ties in with the conversation that I had with, I think it was the head of analytics at Standard Bank, where I was saying to him, I was like, I think what companies need to do is, and you can't really blame them, companies aren't actually sure what they're looking for when it comes to data professionals.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we've got the budget, we're willing to pay the individual, and then they bring in a recruiter who also doesn't know about analytics. And they're like, oh, no, don't worry, that sounds like an analyst. I've got all sorts of people on my list, or I can find you someone like that. And so you've got two people that know they've got a data problem, but they're unsure what this data problem actually is and what it looks like, and the type of person they actually need to solve this problem. And I think, and I was mentioning this to him, and I'm like, I think what companies actually need to do is they need to actually start consulting with practicing data scientists. Bring them in there, or a data engineer, or whoever, but an actual data professional. Bring them into the organization. Say, this is our company. This is what it looks like. This is what we're thinking of doing. And then that person can say to them, oh, okay, you guys don't actually need a data scientist. It's going to cost you too much money. What you really need is someone to actually build dashboards for you, for the stage in which your company is in right now. Let's have another conversation 18 months from now. Once you guys have this handled, then you can mature. You can start perhaps looking at maturing in your data analytics capabilities. But if you're looking at someone who's going to be looking at the sales from the different clients, and you want to look at that into one dashboard, you don't need a data scientist. It's going to cost you too much money. So I think what companies need to do, and I think they aren't taking that into account, bring in a data professional to consult with you. And their job is to actually say to you, what you're looking for is a data scientist, or what you're looking for is a data engineer. What you're looking for is this. And perhaps if you are a person that knows those people, oh, and I actually have a few people I could actually recommend who would be able to come in and do that. I can send you 3 names, or you can send out a vacancy. You can interview with these people, and then you can decide. But I think based on what you're looking for, this is the role we're actually looking for. Because some of these job specs are ridiculous. They've got like Kubernetes, they've got this, they've got that, and they've got like cloud computing, AWS, Azure, and you can see by the way in which this job spec has been basically scoped, like this person doesn't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're looking for. And so they've got this like spray and pray approach. We're just going to hire whoever we can find, or the best person we can find within our budget, and then we'll just take it from there. Only to find that, okay, even if you can find someone within that budget, but they've got the wrong skill sets because what you were looking for, or they don't stay. I think that's another thing that we don't talk about is the fact of how often data professionals move.
I think that is going to be most likely the outcome, right? Because you're going to have all these things, your TensorFlows, your AWS, and I'm going to be interested. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I want to be doing because I enjoy doing that. And then I get to your company, and then it's a bunch of spreadsheets that I need to put together.
Excel spreadsheets.
And then it ends. You don't even have like a data pipeline. Like you don't have that. You don't have systems that collect your information.
No.
So I think that's a good idea, man. Have you thought of doing that? Don't you want to be the recruiting's the company's recruiting's whisperer, right? They tell you this is the problem that we have, and then you tell them, you need this person, and then this is what you need to recruit for, this is your job description, and put it out there. I think that could bring about transformation, because like you said, recruiters, they go on the internet, they copy all these keywords. It looks like Pokemon names, right? You know,
Yeah.
Kafka's, they copy all of that stuff, and they say the person must know these things, and then it's a junior role, and then it's like, does what you're saying even make sense? Like the kind of person who has 5 years of experience and then comes to a company for a junior role, I mean, something is wrong with that person.
Exactly. No, one of the things that I've considered doing, I've actually been playing around with this and looking into doing it, is working with SMEs that are looking into getting into data analytics, but they aren't sure what that will actually look like for their specific companies. So they aren't actually sure. Perhaps they've got a very vague structure in terms of their data. They've got their spreadsheets and what else, but they aren't actually sure what that actually looks like. Where, and I think a lot of consulting companies tend to do this. You help them mature in their data capability. So as opposed to them hiring a data professional and they're not sure that's actually what's going to happen, they're going to end up doing that. They actually outsource the entire data function. So you've got a company that actually, whose job is to actually help you mature in your data capabilities. They come in there, they help you develop your data strategy, they help you develop your data pipeline. Okay, this is where, based on your business objectives, this is where your company's trying to reach over the next 3 years. Based on that, these are the core KPIs you want to be tracking for the next 18 months. This is the data you would need to collect that would inform these KPIs, this and this and this. If you're a company that don't even have a server, that would be strange, but perhaps you might have a server or whatever else. If you don't, okay, look into perhaps your MySQLs or get a cloud solution. You do all of those other things. Okay, we will do all of these things for you for the next 18 months. You sign a contract of, let's say, 200K, 300K for that. So now you've basically outsourced your data capabilities. So you've got actual professionals that are coming in, an actual data team coming in. They are looking at your entire, from the point of your business objective. This is where you're trying to get over the next 3 years. This is how data can actually do that. So you develop the entire data strategy for them. And should they actually require that, you implement it for them in the beginning stages. So at the end of those 18 months, you're able to say to them, okay, we've got this and this and this actually set up for you. To maintain this and to grow this, you would need this and this and this individuals to come into your business. So then they can then decide after that 18-month or 12-month period, okay, we are seeing the value in this data function. We're seeing the value in what's going on here. We want to bring those capabilities in-house.
Yeah. Hey, Taviso, I'm sorry about that, man. My boss was leaving, so I need to ask for the key. Otherwise, I'm gonna be early for Monday morning. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's been my thought.
I'll be here over the weekend. Yeah.
So those are my thoughts on it. I think that's an idea that I've been trying.
But like, yeah. But have you started to put something down on paper? Because I think that's a good idea, man. That would it would help companies in terms of like their recruitment, right? It's not going to be as lengthy process as it is, and also it will make sure that these companies, they get like the right person. They get the right person to fill that role.
Yeah.
So I think it's a win-win, and that would also increase retention. Because if the role is for data analyst and you get a data analyst, they're most likely going to stay in that role.
Exactly.
So have you put something down in paper? And by the way, I said earlier that not everybody should start a business. Only those people that have identified opportunities. This is an opportunity that you've identified.
You think
now
so?
You need to start your own company. You need to create employment.
Yeah, no, I've actually decided. I decided about, I think it was about a week or so ago. I said, no, I'm actually going to do it.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it could work. Right. I think it really could help, especially your SMEs. I think it really could help them outsource those data functions. So you get, it's basically what BI tools are. You get all the benefits of data analytics minus the coding.
Exactly.
So it's like, okay.
And then you get exactly what you want. Like, exactly. I think that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I think
no, that's interesting stuff, man. You know, like I also started out with the YouTube channel, and I was doing like very technical tutorials. And then on my technical tutorials, people would comment about careers. Like, so the vision that I had, I was gonna help people, you know, understand these coding things. They're not interested in that.
No.
They're interested, tell me about careers. How do I get this job? Remember that thing I said about the market deciding?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you don't listen to the market, you will be priced out of existence. Exactly. So I think it's a very fertile ground, and the people that have, I think, taken it on as a challenge, they were not data professionals. They were recruiters saying that now recruiting is my thing, but now they don't even realize the gap that exists. Like, I mean, if I have to copy and paste a post from the internet and then say this is a role we're advertising for, something is very wrong.
You don't understand the role itself.
Exactly. And then in your post, they always want PhDs, but like those are generally like research positions.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you don't understand what is it that you're recruiting for.
Exactly.
And then if you don't understand what you're recruiting for, you're most likely going to feel that the candidate is greedy, because you're going to ask them the wonderful question that all interviewers ask: what are your salary expectations?
Yeah.
And the guy's going to say, my salary expectations are 1, 2, 3, and you're like, you mad? Because you don't understand what is it that you don't want. The recruiting agency doesn't understand what is it that you don't want.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know you have a problem. You just don't know who can fix the problem, and you don't know how to be confident that the person you're interviewing has the skills to solve your problem. There's no way to tell. It's a blind trust type of system.
Yeah, I think.
And then I think your company would disrupt that. So
I really am gonna double down on it. Like, as you're speaking right now, I'm actually reminded of the missus is a medical doctor.
Yeah.
And in medicine, they've got this idea of referred pain, where it's like you can have pain on, like, let's say your lower back, and it's your kidney that's the problem. And I think that's what we're seeing with the data space in terms of recruiting. Like, the company will say, my lower back is sore, and then the recruiter says, oh, no, don't worry, I've got like heat pads. I've got lots and lots of heat pads, you know, until they actually speak to someone and they're like, no, listen, the problem is your kidney. It's not your back. Like, if you fix it, they basically call it referred pain. So it's like where you are actually feeling the pain is not where the problem is.
Yeah.
Easy. So I think that that's what we're seeing with, especially the recruitment process, where you're finding so many mismatches. Is not understanding the pain itself and not speaking to someone.
No, definitely, man. Yeah, I think I've also found myself in so many projects where they'll tell you, like, you know, we need, this sounds like a machine learning project. We need a machine learning that does 1, 2, 3. And then as you ask the requirements, like, okay, cool. What is the data? And then what do you expect to do with the insights? And then you're like, nah, this is a SQL query problem.
Yeah.
Right. So you give them a SQL query and then they say, great. I like the machine learning model that you created. Like, it's just a query.
Yes.
Just write tables and then you have your insights. That's actually a brilliant way of looking at it, that, you know, they want to heal where it hurts.
Exactly.
Right? And something is causing the pain. Yeah.
No, man, like, I think you've given me a lot of confidence in going through with this. I think it'll be a nice side project to take.
Yeah. So how much stake do I have in your company, by the way? Do we do 40%? Is that still the standard going rate?
You shall receive.
I've been out of the startup game for a few months, so I'm not sure.
You'll receive an honorary preference share of 1.
I know, cool, man, cool. It's been a like a chat.
Tshepo, thank you so much, man. I've really enjoyed this. This has gone on for a lot longer than what I thought it would.
Yeah.
I think you've shared like a lot of insights. I'm gonna be spending my weekend really just breaking this entire conversation down and sharing some of these clips. Like, I really think you've shared like some really valuable stuff. And I thank you for your time. Like, I don't take that for granted.
Awesome.
I really appreciate that.
Now, I learned as much as from you as well, and I think it was a two-way conversation. I also enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a pity that we only get to do this now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's been long coming. It's been long coming.
Yeah.
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 No, man, I think the next one will definitely be in person.
Stuff.
The next one needs to be in person.
Awesome. Definitely. Definitely. We probably need to get that.
Yeah. Let me not keep you any longer, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, man.
Sharp.
Cheers.